afternoon and thank you for joining us on Future TV. I'm Lina Tamim and these are today's top stories. Iran's ambassador to Lebanon, Ghassan Farroukh, says Tehran is seeking to boost ties with Lebanon and its Gulf rival, Saudi Arabia. Late legendary singer Wadia Safi will be laid to rest in his hometown of Niha in the Shuf region. And at least 20 people are killed in a massive car blast in the Syrian town of Darkush near the Turkish border. Iran's ambassador to Lebanon, Ghassan Farroukh, says Tehran is seeking to boost ties with Lebanon and its Gulf rival Saudi Arabia. The ambassador's comments come following talks with head of the future bloc Fouad Sanyoura at his Bliss office in Beirut. Rouknabadi and Sanyoura have discussed regional and international developments, the Lebanese-Iranian relations, and steps to strengthen cooperation between Iran and its neighboring countries, mainly Saudi Arabia. Rouknabadi has also briefed Sanyoura on the latest developments regarding the Iranian nuclear file and the 5+1 group meeting with the Iranian Republic. Late legendary singer Wadia Safi will be laid to rest in his hometown of Niha in the Shuf region. His family explains that he will be buried in Niha so that his grave will serve as a cultural landmark for all Lebanese and fans throughout the world. The funeral was held at St. George's Church in downtown Beirut today. The family, meanwhile, continues to receive condolences at his Hazmiya residence in Beirut. Safi, 92, passed away on Friday after a battle with illness. Born Wadia Francis in 1921, he started his artistic journey at the age of 17 when he took part in a singing contest held by a Lebanese radio station and was chosen the winner among 50 other competitors. The artist was a classically trained tenor and has written over 3,000 songs. State Commissioner to the Military Court, Judge Sa'ir, has charged 7 people, 3 of whom are in custody, in connection with the August bombings of the 2 mosques in Tripoli. The charges include the formation of an armed gang for the purpose of carrying out terrorist activities and the bombing of Al Taqwa and Al Salam mosques on August 23rd. The 3 detainees are identified as Yusuf Diab, Anas Hamzi, and Hussein Jafar. Diab was arrested on Friday when he admitted to parking the car which exploded near Al Salam mosque. As for Jafar, he has facilitated the transfer of the car bombs from Syria. It isn't clear what Hamzi's role was in the attacks. At least 20 people have been killed when a car bomb exploded in the Syrian town of Darkush in the Idlib province near the Turkish border. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says at least 1 child is among the dead, and the death toll is expected to rise due to the large number of people who suffered serious injuries. The market area of Darkush, where the attack took place, is under rebel control. A video posted by activists online showed the aftermath of the blast, with at least 1 car ablaze and the ground covered with ashes. Another video shows residents carrying bodies on makeshift stretchers and extensive damage to the buildings around the blast site. UN weapons inspectors set off for yet another field visit as they continue work on their mission to dismantle Syria's chemical weapons stockpile. Inspectors from the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons and UN staff have been in Syria for the past 2 weeks now to destroy the country's chemical weapons and production equipment. The OPCW, which works to eliminate chemical weapons around the world, has won the Nobel Peace Prize last Friday in a powerful endorsement of its Syria mission. Its inspectors have so far visited 3 sites linked to Syria's chemical weapons program, though the agency has not provided details. The inspectors' mission in Syria is unprecedented because of a tight timetable. They are to get the job done by mid-2014, and because they are operating in the midst of a civil war, they are yet to inspect more than 20 sites, some close to the front lines of the war. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry says it is urgent to set a date for the Geneva II meeting on the future of Syria, and that a transition government is the only way forward. Kerry's comments come after a meeting with UN Special Representative Lakhdar Brahimi in London. He says his country is deeply committed to try to set a date very soon. Kerry says, and I quote, "President Bashar al-Assad has lost the legitimacy necessary to be able to be a cohesive force that could bring people together, and therefore there has to be a transition government. There has to be a new governing entity in Syria." And coming up next, Muslims across the Middle East are preparing for Eid al-Adha celebrations. Stay tuned. Welcome back. About 2 million people, Muslims from across the world, are converging in Mecca, Saudi Arabia, on the first day of the annual Hajj pilgrimage. Concerns have been raised that the huge crowds could spread the deadly respiratory virus known as the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. Saudi authorities sharply cut back on visas for groups such as elderly, pregnant women, and those with chronic illnesses, as a precaution against a new virus which is related to SARS that has killed more than 50 people in the kingdom this past year. Mecca is normally a sleepy city of some 500,000 that transforms into a teeming metropolis each year at the Hajj, one of the 5 pillars of Islam. Muslims across the Middle East are shopping for clothes, sweets, and decorations in preparation for the festival of Eid al-Adha. The holiday, which translates as Festival of the Sacrifice, commemorates what Muslims believe is Ibrahim's willingness to sacrifice his son Isaac when God ordered him to. It also celebrates the end of the Hajj, the annual pilgrimage to Mecca. Eid is a public holiday in many places and is a time to visit family and friends and offer presents. Traditionally, Muslims sacrifice an animal during the Eid and share the meat with their families, neighbors, and people less fortunate than themselves. Markets are also in Iraq despite tough security measures and increased checkpoints in the capital. Iran has rejected a demand by Western countries to ship out uranium stockpiles ahead of a fresh round of talks on its contested nuclear program in Geneva. Abbas Araghchi, the deputy foreign minister, says shipping the material abroad is our red line. We do not allow shipment or even 1 gram of uranium from Iran. He, however, signaled flexibility on other aspects of its atomic activities. Araghchi's comments come ahead of the new negotiations between Iran and 5 permanent UN Security Council members and Germany to be held in Geneva on October 15th and 16th. The talks will be the first since the election of Iranian President Hassan Rouhani, who has tried to improve relations with the West to pave the way for lifting economic sanctions. Iran still insists its nuclear program is peaceful and it only seeks reactors for energy and medical use, while the West suspects it of seeking to make nuclear weapons. London's financial markets have opened with a sense of foreboding as American politicians remain deadlocked over the U.S. debt ceiling. Michael Ingram of BCG Partners says the possibility of the United States defaulting on its debts is almost too awful for traders to contemplate. As a result, he says markets are in a state of denial. Meanwhile, the focus of the markets in Germany lies on negative export data from China, as well as the ongoing U.S. debt crisis. China's exports suffered an unexpectedly sharp decline in September amid weak global demand, but imports grew. More than 380 people have been arrested after Russian nationalists rampaged for hours in Moscow over the murder of a local man blamed on a migrant. Police ordered a citywide security alert and began making arrests after rioters smashed shop windows, set a shopping center on fire, and assaulted security guards. Witnesses say the protesters threw empty beer bottles, clubs, and even hammers at a riot police force that rushed to the scene in about a dozen buses. Police says the city's entire active security force has been mobilized several hours into the riot, and 5 police officers are injured. And now for news around the world in brief. At least 111 people have been killed following a stampede at a Hindu temple in India. Relatives of the victims are outraged as their loved ones were crushed to death or drowned in the stampede, triggered by rumors of a collapsing bridge. Nearly 150,000 pilgrims had gathered on Sunday at the Rathaga temple in the central state of Madhya Pradesh, the site of another deadly stampede only 7 years ago. An appeals panel has ruled that a Malaysian Catholic newspaper could not use Allah to refer to the Christian God in a case that sparked attacks on places of worship 3 years ago. The dispute erupted in early 2009 when the Home Ministry threatened to revoke the Herald's publishing permit for using the word. The Catholic Church sued, claiming violation of its constitutional rights. A team of experts from the International Atomic Energy Agency has met Japanese government officials in Tokyo as part of a mission to assess progress being made on the cleanup operation underway at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant. Japanese officials acknowledged that in July that the plant had been leaking radioactive water into the Pacific Ocean. During its 9-day visit, IAEA experts will coordinate with the Japanese government and nuclear officials and will also visit villages near the power plant. U.S. trio Lars Peter Hansen, Eugene Fama, and Robert Schiller have won the Nobel Economics Prize for groundbreaking work on trend spotting and asset markets. The jury says the three were honored for their empirical analysis of asset prices. The Academy says since the 1960s, Fama and others showed how difficult it is to predict stock prices in the short run, finding which changed the market practice. The Nobel committees have now announced all 6 of the annual $1.2 million awards for 2013. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange says former National Security Agency analyst Edward Snowden deserves an award given to him earlier this week by a group of retired U.S. national security officers. Speaking from the Ecuador Embassy in London, Assange says the citation is an award for integrity. Snowden, who is charged by a U.S. court with violating the Espionage Act for disclosing classified NSA programs, has been granted asylum in Russia and is believed to be in Moscow. The 4 former U.S. government officials who once worked for the CIA, FBI, Justice Department, and NSA, have criticized the U.S. government and exposed what they believe was wrongdoing in the security agencies. All supporters of Snowden, they were the first Americans known to have met him since he was granted asylum in Russia in August. They refused to disclose where they met him and where he is living.
We, through a lot of work, in particularly by Sarah Harrison, managed to gain him asylum in Russia after our attempts to gain him asylum in South America were thwarted in a very bizarre manner by the State Department by denying, by cancelling his passport while he was in Moscow. So he's safe. He's working to educate people, the journalists involved in these disclosures, as to what is going on. He very rightly received that award from former NSA, CIA, FBI and DOJ whistleblowers, an award for integrity. It's a serious matter. It's a threat to US democracy and to democracy more broadly in the West, to have a surveillance apparatus on every single person that would have been the dream of East Germany.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a recap of our headlines. Iran's ambassador to Lebanon says Tehran is seeking to boost ties with Lebanon and its Gulf rival Saudi Arabia. Late legendary singer Wadad Safi will be laid to rest in his hometown of Niha in the Shuf region. At least 20 people are killed in a massive car blast in the Syrian town of Darkush near the Turkish border. Those were today's headlines from Future TV. I'm Linda Tamim, wishing you all a very nice evening.